It's time already, so let's get started. Hello everyone, my name is Lucas and welcome to the Untitled WebDev stream. This is the 5th episode. Today we will be talking about JavaScript and the interactions with the DOM. We will be seeing what DOM means later. This is the 5th episode in this series of videos that are like pretty random and like I basically do them on the fly. And they are mainly about web development. So if you are new to the stream, welcome. This is going from 0 to hero basically. So if you missed any of the previous episodes, I would recommend you to like watch them because those tackle like the tooling I'm using, like for example the code editor and the browser. Also, I talk about HTML and CSS, the two previous languages that I tackle in this stream, and they are basically the other two building blocks to create a website or a web app. And the latest one was about like the initial stuff about JavaScript. This one will tackle a few more concerns about that language and like the syntax in general. And we will start seeing how that integrates with HTML and CSS. So let's switch to the desktop. Let me know if you can see clearly. I think it's zoom like at a good level, but if it's too small for your screen or something like that, just let me know and I will make it bigger. So I already have my browser open in here, and this is basically like the short version of what we saw on the latest episode, right? So we saw that we have comments like this one, where you just put like this // and then everything that you put after that, you don't need to have this space in here. You can write it like this. I just write it because, I don't know, OCD or something like that. It's like, I like to see it with a space. But you can write anything you want in here. So for example, it's like hello stream or something like that. These are like similar to HTML comments or CSS comments. They're just to help ourselves if we forget about something that is in there in the code, or they are there also to help other developers understand what you wrote. So for example, I could in top of this line that I have in here, this one in here, I could just write like another comment and say like, this is an example of a constant, for example. And this will be ignored by the browser when it's like reading your code. So this will not be run or anything like that. It is in here just for us as developers to understand parts of the code, to add explanations and stuff like that. So I also show you about constants. So this is one of them which values can't change later. So once we set the value, that value gets stored in there and never changes. And in here, for example, I store a string that's like a chain of characters. For example, I could save in here also like an emoji or like kanji from the Japanese language or Korean or whatever. So it's just like a sequence of characters, right? And in here, following that constant, we have this let. That let is basically like a variable. So it's similar to a constant. It's a place where we save stuff, but the value can change later. It's not like blocked. So in here, I set the value to 1, 2, 3, 4, a number, but I could later, for example, like say like this will change. And in here, I'm able to set another value like 4, 5, 6, 7 or whatever, or even like another type of value. So instead of saving a number, I could save like a string in here. Okay, so we saw that we can save strings. That is like the sequence of characters. We can save numbers, we can save Boolean values. Those were like only true or false. So this could be true or false. So that's why I put the name maybe, but this can be anything we want. I also show you what's called functions. So in here I have a function called double. And the function is basically like a way of saving a behavior, an action, something that will happen later. So for example, in here I'm saying that I want a value to be multiplied by 2, that's why it's called double, but I don't know the value yet, so I'm expecting a value, and once I have that, I will be able to multiply it by 2. So this doesn't do anything. Double is just a function. When I actually want to get the double of something, I need to, for example, say like double of 4, let's say, or like let's use a number in here. And in here I could do something like double 4, right? So now the value of double of 4 is the value returned by this function. So I call this double, and now I know the value of value. So this 4 will be in here. So this value will be replaced by that by 4, and 4 by 2. This value will be 8 basically. Also, I show you that you can not only store functions, you can also store logic expressions. So for example, in here we have 1 is bigger than 2, which is false. It's obviously false, but let's say for example this, instead of being a 1, instead of being a number, is an actual another constant, for example. So in here it could be like age, for example, or something like that, and age is bigger than 2 or something like that. So this is just like a logic expression. Once this is evaluated, meaning that the browser reached this line and reads like 1 is bigger than 2, I know it's false. This is basically the same as writing just like false, because we already know the value, but this will be evaluated by the browser and will be replaced by the result of that logic expression. So we have some logic and we test it, and if it's true, then we replace the value of that with true, and if it's false, then we replace it with the value false. In this case, 1 will never be bigger than 2, so this will always be false, okay? One thing that you could notice is that I can use these like comments, not only like in their own lines, like for example in here, I can write them like at the end of a line, like in this example in here, and I can leave them like that. If it's more clear for us as developers or for our co-workers, if we are working together in a project, then it's better to just put the comments where they make sense. So in this case, for example, if I put it in here, it's kind of obvious that I'm saying like, it's not super obvious, right? I could do like, I don't know, like that is false or something like that, or say like this will always be false or something like that. But it's like being just next to the value being assigned kind of makes sense to like this comment is talking about this, right? If I just put false in the line above, it might not be as clear as putting line beside it. It's just like one clarification, right? So the other thing I show you, for example, is that you can then combine stuff like this function we have in here, like a function with a logic expression. How we do that? Basically, we have this, let's separate it a little in order, this function in here that is called can drink. So like let's say like can drink alcohol, right? Because like you should be drinking water like from when you are a child or something. Yeah, well, so you have like can drink, and this takes an age instead of like a value, because we define like the name of this. It could be like whatever you want in here, okay? So I put age in there because it makes sense for the code, it's readable, because if we don't use a name that is readable or that is easier to understand, then it will be confusing for our coworkers. And even if we are working alone, I already talked about this, but even if we are talking like working alone in our project, let's say like a few months go by, like 3 or 4 months, and you go back to the code you wrote a few months back, it will be like really hard to understand. Like you need to write it not only for your coworkers, but for your future self, let's say. So I use the age in here because this can drink function will take an age, and depending on that age, it will return true or false if I'm like true if I can drink, and false if I can't drink, okay? So this is basically like a combination of these two. It's taking an age instead of a value, and instead of like doing value multiplied by 2 or something like that, is like age is bigger than or equal, so I can put it like this. If I do just bigger than, then 21 will return false, and that's because 21 is not bigger than 21, is equal. So when I do bigger than equal, basically I'm saying like if is bigger or equal to 21. So 21 will be true, and anything bigger than that, like 22, 23, and so on, will also be true, right? So this is a combination of these two. Lately, the last one I show you is this one that is basically what is called a ternary operator, and it is like, let's make this one in like a long format. So if we do this same thing in a long format, it will be something like const age, let's say 18, and then I do if age is bigger or equal to 21, and in here I say like can drink, else I can't write today as usual, can't drink. Okay, so it will be something like this, but in like a shorter yet easier to read format. How is that? We have, besides this can drink function, we have this other one that is called can drink message, and this one will return can drink, like it will give us the string, the sequence of characters that says can drink if the user is able to drink, if his age is bigger or equal to 21, and if not, then we will get the can't drink, right? So instead of writing again in here, doing like age bigger or equal to 21, which will be like repeating the logic because we already have this in here, we can just go ahead and use a function inside another function. So basically this can drink message will first do a can drink age. So what did I open? Sorry. So in here what we are doing is saying like we want to take an age first equal to the can drink, so it's like the same scenario, right? But then we send that age directly to here, to this can drink, and depending on the output we go to this message or this one. So to recapitulate, we can do can drink message, and let's say the age is, like I said today, like 18, right? So the browser will do the following. First, it will be look for this can drink message. We already have it in here, so it's this one, right? Then it will say, okay, I will send you this value 18. You can do whatever you want with it. So in here we say, okay, age is 18, right? So this value will be received in here. And once we have that value, we call this can drink function, and again the browser will say, okay, where is can drink? Is in here. Okay, I will send the value that I have in here, this age. So we now know that this is 18. 18 will be in here and it will be receiving here. 18 then will be reach this value, and because it's lower than 21, this will return false. Then we go back to this line in here, and we said, I explained this already in the previous episode. So this ternary operator means this question mark means anything that follows the question mark is for true. Anything that follows this this column is what applies to false, right? So because this age is 18 based on this, and that returns false, then we skip this and we go to this one. So this will end up returning this value. Okay, so that's pretty much everything we saw in like I don't know how much I took, like, yeah, 50 minutes. The 2 hours that I took in the previous stream in 50 minutes. Okay, so this is like everything we saw so far. We still need to see 3 three things. I think there are like three more things from like the syntax standpoint, and we can start messing with the browser, so we can actually start using this in our web app. Okay, so one thing that I skipped in this previous one, and I can show you in here as well, is that I already showed you that you can create comments by just doing like this // okay, but you might end up in a scenario where you need to, for example, say like have like another line of explanation in here and yet another thing in here, and it's kind of tedious to have to do this in every line, right? So these comments I showed you previously is they are called line comments. So there are comments that just take one line, or that they're from this point forward on the line. So for example, this line is completely taken by this comment. If I try to write some code in here like const or something, this will be ignored, right? So I need to go to the following line because this is a line comment. Also, if I add a comment at the end, this comment at the end of a line, from like this is all fine, this will run, but from this point from the double slash and forward, everything will be ignored by the browser. In this line I need to go to the following one. That's why in here in the browser the comments look kind of gray, because they are ignored and everything else is kind of colorful. It's like a way of for the browser, we will also see this on the code editor later, but it's a way of like differentiating between the comments and the actual code. Okay, so the problem that I mentioned is that we have line comments. So these are comments that will take only one line, but maybe we want to have multiple lines. So to achieve that, we have a quite different syntax, is / and then */. So from this sequence of characters, the / until the */, everything is a comment. So I can write in here, hi Chris, thanks for following. So I can write in here whatever I want, and I can take as many lines as I need, and everything between this sequence of characters will be a comment, so will be ignored by the browser. Okay, this is kind of useful when you need to write more stuff than just one line. This is basically like the two formats of comments that you have on JavaScript. The line comments that only take one line, and the block comments that are made to actually write a block of stuff, right? These ones will become really useful later, but just for now, let's just like focus on this in particular, okay? Surprise, I'm making or starting a business. Okay. Sorry, I was reading the comments. So we have then these ones, and let's say let's leave it in here, block comment. Okay, now I show you that we have strings. Let's create like strings that are put between the quotes. We have also numbers. Let's turn this into a const. Numbers that are basically like a sequence of numbers, and we have booleans as well. Booleans that can take the value true or false as well. So let's add there, and we have also functions. And maybe, yeah, let's save it. No, this is a boolean, just an expression with a boolean, so we can remove everything else. So these are all the type of values that I show you so far. So we have strings, numbers, booleans, and functions, right? So the other thing that we need, there are other two types that we can use, and they are super useful, and I didn't show you them yet because they were like more complex than these basic ones. So we have the primitive types. Those are the simplest types that come with the browser. This is numbers, strings, and booleans. functions are a little more complex, but let's say that we included that to make it more interesting. But we have two others that are more complex, but they are really useful in certain scenarios. So we have one that is called array. Let's say arrays in order to keep it consistent. I will talk about this in a minute. And we have other one that is called object. So objects, I can't write today. Go. So we have arrays and objects. These two are the ones that we were missing in the previous episode, and these ones will come like really handy when we start working with the DOM, okay, with the browser, with the interacting with HTML and CSS. So arrays are basically a list of values, okay? So if you need, for example, let's say you have a list of users, or like because so far we had like a function, for example, to test if somebody had the proper age to drink, right? So that somebody will be could be like part of a list of users that we have. So for example, let's say we have like, I don't know, 10 users. That will be like a really small number, but let's say we have 10 users and we have the ages for every one of them. So let's say we have, let's make it 3, because if not this will become like really cumbersome. But let's say we have 3 users. One has 18 years old, other one has 21 years old, and the other one has, I don't know, like 30, let's say. So as you can see, I put between these square brackets a list of values separated by comma. So this is a list of stuff basically. In here, in the JavaScript arrays, we are not like obligated to just use numbers, for example. In here, inside this array of things, this list of things, we can put any kind of value, meaning that anything that we saw previously, for example, these strings, numbers, booleans, functions, whatever can be inside of a list. So I could, for example, do something like having text in here, followed by a boolean, followed by a number, followed by a function like value, I don't know, like +1, for example. And this is valid. It's kind of confusing right now, but it's valid because this is basically like a list of stuff. This arrays constant right now is a list that has a string, a boolean, a number, and a function, and every one of those are inside that list, okay? So the thing is, okay, everything now, for example, let's say this list of ages right now is inside this array. How can I access them? So for example, previously, if I had these strings with this value and I wanted to see this value on the console or in the browser or whatever, I just needed to basically do strings, and this will have the value inside that is like some text, right? But now we want to access one value inside this list. So how can we, for example, access to this 21? Because right now this is a list. I can show you, let's copy this in order to have it saved somewhere, that if we have this const arrays in here and I save it, now if I do arrays has that list inside of it, right? Like it has 18, 21 and 30, but the thing is, like, I want to, for example, access the first one, 18. How can I make that? So in order to access the first value, I need to do arrays, and then again we use the square brackets in order for like have some kind of consistency with the syntax, and in here I need to put a 0. This is something that is super common in programming languages, but like there are like even like t-shirts with messages like this or stuff like that, but programmers start counting from 0. So the first value will not be 1, so this is not 1, this is 0. The second one will be 1, the third one will be 2, and so on and so forth. So we start counting from 0, okay? So if I want to get the first value in this list, I need to first use the name of the list I have, or the array I have. So this one is arrays right now, and I can call it with a 0 to get the first one. I can make it even more clear. So if we have this, we can call it like edges, for example, to make it more clear for you. And if I do edges, and now I want to get the second one, right? So I do 1, and I get the second one because we started counting from 0, okay? So, as I said previously, arrays aren't like, you are not compelled to like just use numbers or just use strings or something like that. You can have anything you want in there. So, going back to this example, if for example I want to have like, let's say, yeah, I want to have a string in here, text, and I want to have a number as well, and I want to have a logic expression, for example, like I previously shown, for example, 1 is bigger than 2, I add 3, let's say, I wanted to type 2 and I ended up typing 3, whatever. So, we already know that this is false, okay? So, if we save this, arrays will show us that we have a list that has text, 21, and false. And we access it the same way. We just do arrays, for example, and I want to now access the latest one, the logic expression. So I go to the 2, because the third one is 2. Again, every time you want to go to certain index, like a certain point in the list, you need to remember that we start counting from 0. So you need to do the value you want minus 1, basically. So I want to go to the third one, minus 1 is 2, so this 2 will be false, and I get the false value from there, okay? I want to be super clear about this, that this is basically like the array lets you save any kind of values, because, as I previously mentioned, we have strings, numbers, booleans, functions, logical expressions like I just showed you, and arrays, but arrays are also values. What I mean by this is that you can basically, and this will sound kind of crazy, you can save arrays inside arrays, okay? Could you show? Like let me know what kind of examples you want to see, if it's kind of confusing, and I will go in deep into that, Leo, don't worry about it. So, sorry, they are asking for examples in the chat. So, as you can see, now I go again to these arrays, but as I just mentioned, we can have arrays inside arrays, basically, because arrays are also values. So for example, I could do something like, instead of this 18, I could like have again square brackets and say 18 and I don't know, like hello stream, okay? So now if I save this and I do arrays again in order to see the value, we can see that now is, if we expand it, the browser lets us like see the expanded version of the array, right? We have in the index 0, in the first, we have another array that has 18 and hello stream, and then we have 2 other values. That's because arrays are also a valid value, so you can put, because arrays can have any kind of value inside of it, they can also have another array, and that another array could have another array inside of it, and so on and so forth. So you can go like at any deep level that you need. So how can we, in this scenario, access this hello stream message? So in order to achieve that, we need to say arrays first, right? Then I showed you this earlier. We use the square brackets in order to access the index, the place where that is. And we already know that it's in the first one, so we go with 0. But this will only return us the array, and we only want this one, okay? So in order to achieve that, you need to basically, again, use the square brackets and go to the index of that. So in this case, it's 1 because 0 is 18 and 1 is hello stream. So once I do that, basically we access that level of deep. If we for example we have like 4 arrays, one inside the other, basically we will have something like this, and then like another level in here and another level in here, basically. So Every time you need to access one level deep, basically you need to add another set of square brackets in order to access that thing in particular, right? Okay, so now I said that the two things that I was missing was arrays and objects. Objects are a little bit trickier, but they also are like a lot more useful than arrays in the vast majority of the scenarios. So an array is fine to store like a list of things that are in certain order. For example, we have like, I don't know, like a list of users like I just mentioned, and we want to show them by in the order they sign up to our web app, for example. Then we have a list of users in that order. But the thing is, like, for example, keeping it in like this logic of having users store, if we want to, for example, get another kind of data besides the age, let's say, for example, that we have in here just one user, okay? And that user, we know that the age is 18. That's great. And we want, for example, to also have the name. So let's say like, I don't know, derp will be the name. And we want to also have, I don't know, the street address. And that will be like fake address 1234 or something like that, okay? So, okay, we have like several like information about the user. We have the age, the name, and the address. But the thing is, like, why is the age the index 0 and the name is the index 1? It's kind of confusing, and this doesn't have any, like, it's being saved in this particular order, but there is no reason behind that, right? It will be more useful to say everything related to the user in some kind of way. I'm foreshadowing already, but in some kind of way that let us access these values in a way that is more readable, that is more easy to read, basically. So, in this case in particular, we should go to what are called objects. Objects, instead of using the square brackets, they use also the curly braces, like the ones that we saw in the previous episode being used in blocks for the if structure. But I know it's confusing. This got like a lot of criticism from like developers all around, because it's kind of confusing to use the same kind of brackets or the same kind of braces for structures and for this. But bear with me. So we use these curly braces, and instead of saving the values, like for example, like I showed you previously with arrays, just like doing like 18 and derb and fake address 1234, instead of saving it like this will not be like read by the browser. You will get an error basically if you try to do this. So you put names to the things that you want to save. How we do this? I went to a new line in order to make it easier to read. So I can do like age, and then colon, and the value I want, and then comma, and in a new line let's put it like name, colon, and the name, and then address. So now it's far easier to read for us, because we don't have like just a list of things. We have some kind of like this, what is called an object in JavaScript, but it's basically like a way of telling, like putting names to the things we are saving. So for example, we are saving the age with the 18 value, the name with derb, and the address with fake address 1234. So these ones are far easier to read already in this part. But let's see how is this saved. Okay, so let's press enter to save it, and user. As you can see, this is already saved with a pretty similar format to what I show you. I used new lines in order to make it easier to read, but you can put it in one line. It's not recommended at all, but you can do it. We can expand it and see it pretty much as I wrote it. So address, age, and name. You can see that the browser sorts the values. So because address goes before age and name in the, like if you are sorting by letters, so this is being sorted by the browser. But it doesn't matter so much, because if you want to save stuff in a certain order, you use an array, basically, because the arrays are, as I showed you before, a list of things that are one after the other, basically. And the objects are, you don't care about the order in an object, you care about the names of the stuff, because you want to be able to recognize or differentiate one thing from the other. So, in order to actually access, for example, the age, you have two ways of doing it. One that is not very recommended, but is familiar if you just saw arrays as I showed you before. So for example, let's say I want to access the age, I do user square brackets, and in here we don't have any kind of number. If I do 0, it will not be valid at all, because we don't have any kind of order. But we know that the value is being stored as age, right? So we put age like a string in here, and we get the 18 value, right? This is one way of accessing that value. There is one other way that is kind of easier to like even write, and that one will be to do user and just do like dot, and then I get age. So this is far shorter and sweeter, okay? So you can do, for example, user.age, and you get 18. And I now want to get the name of the user, so do like user.name, and I get the name of the user. User.address, and I get the address of the user, and so on and so forth. So basically, objects allow you to save stuff in without any particular order, but with certain names associated to the values you saved, okay? So now, going back to this, I mentioned before that strings are values, numbers are a type of value, booleans are a type of value, functions are a type of value, arrays are a type of value, objects are also a type of value. What I mean by this is that you, for example, could save objects inside an array. So for example, in this array I could have something like I just showed you, and have like an object in here and have like age 18, for example, because objects are also values. You could save inside an object an array. So for example, like, I don't know, friends, and this could be like an array with all the friends inside of it. And in here, inside this array, inside an object, I could have again another object or a value or a boolean or whatever. What I mean by this is that because arrays and objects both have a way of saving values, they could also save an object inside an object, an array inside an array inside an object inside an array, and so on and so forth. You can mix them whatever you need to match the logic or the structure of the thing you are creating. So I say, like, I used like several times already the example with the users array, so a list of users basically. So that will be something like, for example, const users, and in here we do the square brackets in order to have like a list. And inside this list, I could, for example, use the curly braces, and in here have something like name. Let's say Leo, and age. You can say your age in a way. I will make you, I don't know if younger or older with this, but let's say like I have your age in here. You can say it in the chat if you are still there. So and I'm quite older, so let's do name in here, and I'm Luke. And my age is 30, about to get 31, so pretty old. There. So we have 28, thanks Leo. So we have a list or an array of users. Inside of that we have one object user that has the name Leo and the age 28, and the name Luke with the age 30, okay? So if we save this, then how we can access, for example, the Leo user, right? We just do like users, square brackets 0 to get the first one. So now we get the object, and if we want to get the age, then we do dot age. and we get the age of the user that is in the 0 position. So we can start mixing up the syntax, right? You might already figure this one out, but I will show you yet that you can. I show you already that you can do like an array inside an array, and in order to access that, you do something like array square brackets the value and square brackets again and another value, right? But you can also do an object inside an object, so that would be like const example, and in here we could have like something that is also an object, and inside this other object we could have like full, and I don't know if this is value true, let's say, or something like that. Okay, so this is an object, this object inside another object. So to get this true value in here, basically we do example, that is the name of the first object, this one. Then we do dot, then the name of the second object, this is something. Then if we want to access this foo value, we need to do dot foo, basically. So we went to this value because we have an object inside an object, right? And you could try to figure this one out. You can try every like example you want, but basically if you put like an array inside of this, it will be like, for example, foo whatever and other object and so on and so forth. You can put it at any level you want. Generally, you will prefer to keep it as simple as possible. This is again going to what one thing I mentioned in the previous episode of the Untitled WebDev stream, and basically is that you need to try to keep it as simple as possible. It's one thing that is called keys. I mentioned it previously. Keys, like keys, but basically this means like keep it simple, stupid. So basically it's like keep it as simple and stupid as possible, because if you make it as complex as like the previous example, like example, I can write today, gosh. So if you do something like this, example dot something dot foo, and then you start like 0 and then another level, and this one maybe is like other thing and has like also another array in here or something like that, this is super hard to read. It's like what is even this? So you need to try to keep it as simple as possible. You can do this, but like if any programming language like JavaScript, or like even if you go to another language like for example C or C++ or something like that, the fact that the language allows you to do something doesn't mean that you should do that, because you could end up with something that really nasty and really hard to read. For example, ANSI C, one of the most used programming languages, used for example to create Linux and to create Windows, for example. Languages that like those one allows you to mess with the memory of the computer. You could basically like if you want to like raise the temperature of your computer and blow it up, you will be able to do that, but you shouldn't. It's like the language allows you to do that, but you shouldn't do that. So JavaScript allows you to create these super complex structures in which you put one thing, another, and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean you should do that. You should try to keep it as simple as possible, okay? So, going back, we have strings, numbers, booleans, functions, arrays, and objects. These are basically like the vast majority of things that you will use, okay? One thing, like honorable mention, let's say, that is not in this list of possible values. Let's remove it this. Is one that is called I can't use the same name on the file. Okay, let's use the plural because I use the plural for everyone else. So you have the undefined type of value. This one is like the default when you create something but you didn't use it yet. Like for example, if I remember correctly, if you do like let something but you don't assign any value to that, something is undefined. So undefined is like the name implies, it's basically something that is not defined yet. uh, sorry, in the chat Leo says that he can't read my web. Do I need to make it bigger? Just let me know and I will like maybe like this is better. Okay, so we have all these type of values. We have strings, numbers, booleans, functions, arrays, objects, and undefined. Basically, with all these building blocks, we can create like anything. Basically, like you just need to mix them in the proper way. Basically, one thing that I showed you in the previous episode to like show stuff in this console in particular was basically to write console.log. And in here, I have like an example, and that was shown directly in here. This console.log, now that I show you objects, should make a little more sense. This basically is like the browser already gives you a const that is called console, okay? And inside that console, we have a log property, a log thing. And that log thing is a function that does some magic in here. So let's put like magic. And it takes what we want to show. So like some words. So basically the console log that comes with the browser is console is just an object. Inside that object we have a property called log. And that log is just a function that takes anything we send and it shows in the console. So every time you see in JavaScript that we do something like console, for example, but we do like dot something, that dot means that this previous thing was an object and we are accessing a property of that object. And that could be anything. This log in particular is a function, but that property could be another object, it could be a string, it could be a boolean, a number, or whatever. So this is basically like an object with a property inside of it, okay? So with all this, I think we are like fine enough to start messing with the browser, right? To start messing with the DOM. I mentioned the DOM in the title of this stream. I mentioned the DOM at the beginning of the stream, but I didn't went into deep of what the DOM is. So, we already saw in the previous episodes HTML and CSS as the two other like building blocks of the web. HTML is the basic one. Without HTML, you can't build a website. It needs HTML. It's the first thing that the browser tries to read. If you don't have any HTML, it doesn't have anything to read, basically. So, first we have the HTML. CSS we have only to make things prettier. So, if we go back to what we had previously, this website we created, I should open it. So, let's go to the desktop. HTML, and in here we have hello HTML. We drag it to the browser. So we had this. Basically, the HTML was responsible of having this title, this image, and these two links. CSS is responsible of making it look beautiful, basically, or it's not like I'm saying beautiful like this site was kind of beautiful and it is not. It's like it needs a lot of work, but let's say it make it prettier, let's say. So instead of having like the white default background with the like really ugly default font and having like the image on the left and stuff like that, we centered everything and we have like a black background with the white text that is kind of like more pleasing to the eye. And this was achieved by CSS. This particular website, the one we created so far, this for the Untitled WebDev stream, doesn't actually need JavaScript because it's just like a bunch of links, but we could still like try to use it just for the sake of showing it, okay? So, how we connect basically JavaScript to whatever is being rendered by HTML and CSS. We achieve that through what is called the DOM. The DOM is just like an abbreviation, so we can like DOM. That comes from, let's make it a comment so the browser doesn't annoy me. So DOM is document object model. Okay. So first we try to figure out why is this like abbreviation? What is this title basically? So we have the D from document. What is the document? Basically the website. This thing over here on the left is our document. Okay. And object model. This is basically, I already showed you that if you write something like object and you do this is an object, okay? Whatever I put in here like example and a value, this is an object, okay? So document object model is basically, the DOM is a representation of our document, of this website, as an object. And that is available when you are in a browser. You have the DOM all like available for you to mess around, and that is basically like an object like the one I showed you before that comes with the browser, like console. You have something similar that is already available, and that is a representation of your document. This is kind of confusing, so let me show you. If I write something like window in here, window is an object that represents all this window that we have on the left. Okay, so that's an object in JavaScript that represents this. So if I do something with window, like I don't know if this will work, but let's try it. Dot close. So I have window, and that window object has a close property inside of that is a function. That function doesn't take any kind of parameters, so we just call it, but we don't say like, yes, close it, please. We don't need to send anything, we just like call it. And if I do this, maybe, yeah, that closed my browser altogether. And that was because window was an object that represented the window I had open, and when I called the method close inside of it, the function close inside of it, it closed the browser basically. So let's open it again, and let's open the website again. So basically, window is an object that comes with the browser and that represents the entire window, okay? We have others like, for example, document, that as you can see, as soon as I start typing it, this is a functionality that comes with Chrome. This might vary if you are in a browser like, for example, Firefox, or I don't know, like I think just Firefox, because Microsoft Edge is also Chrome, Opera is also Chrome. So it's like all other browsers are basically Chrome with another screen on top of it, but it might vary in Firefox. So document already, as soon as I type it, you can see that everything became kind of blue for a second, and that was because the document is actually this. So if I hover over the value that document returns, is the document, okay, is this. Document comes with a lot of methods, properties, and stuff like that. Methods, sorry, I keep on using this word. Method, when I say method, is basically like a property of an object that has a function on it. So basically, when I have an object, an object that has something inside of it, and that something is a function, this function is generally called method, but you can use them interchangeably. I might have messed up that word, but basically you can interchange one with the other. You can say just a function property or a method is the same thing. So the document, again going back, has a lot of methods or functions and a lot of properties. For example, if I do document.title, I think it is, yes. The document title is the title, the current title that my website has. So if you remember correctly, in HTML, in the head of our HTML, we have this title tag where we set the current title for our website. From JavaScript, we can access that by the document.title, and document.title is just a property of the document object, okay? that has the value of the title. We can even assign a new value like hi there, and if we press enter to save this, the title automatically changes to a new one because we set a new value to the document. Okay, so basically, going back, the DOM or the document object model is just an object or a set of objects like document or window or whatnot, but like there are objects that represent the document sorry, and that allows us to, from JavaScript, change stuff that is set in the document, but also it allows us to get that stuff. What I mean is that if we just want to say, for example, in here console log, and in here we put the title of the website is document.title. In here we are not changing the value of the title, we are just getting it. So if I press enter in here, we get the title of the website is Untitled WebDev stream. That's correct, okay? So that allows us to get the value, but also document.title, it allows us to change it. So we can change it to whatever we want, and that is changed on place. So this is basically, the DOM is the link between JavaScript and HTML and CSS. We get this kind of like object that comes with the browser and that allows us to interact with the website. One useful thing that we can do, for example, let's say I want to remove this image because of reasons. I don't know, we don't have any kind of sorry, I just read the chat. Leo is asking about a browser that is called Brave. That's an actual great browser, but it's also based on Chrome, basically. So the Google Chrome browser, the one that we have right now open, is made on top of a project that is called Chromium. So it's like Chromium. So Chrome is made in top of Chromium, right? And like the vast majority of browsers we have out there right now, like Microsoft Edge, Opera, Safari, not yet, but it will come at the point. But well, basically they are all based on Chromium, this base project. Brave, the browser you mentioned, is also based on Chromium, but they basically added the ad block by default. So when you use Brave, you don't see any kind of ads. You might see some kind of like a Bitcoin of sorts that comes with that browser, but that's basically because the idea they have behind that browser is that instead of showing ads, you should be, every time you visit a website that has this Bitcoin, you should like send some kind of money to the person that created the website without showing them ads. So it's like they're trying to change the current model we have of showing ads to make money, and instead of making money showing ads, we make money through cryptocurrency. So yeah, sorry, I went like far above that browser, but yeah, it's kind of like interesting project. So going back, I wanted to remove this image like an example of the things that we are able to do, okay? So how can I do that? We have document dot, and in here one of the many methods or functions we have with the document is one that is called, and it's kind of long, query selector. Okay, and let's add some quotes in here. So this query selector method is kind of great if you already studied a little bit about HTML and CSS, basically. So that's why I show you those before going into this. So this query selector in here, the string it takes is basically the same type of things that you will use in CSS to select stuff. What I mean by this is, for example, I want to remove this image, so I should use the same thing that I use to style that image. In this case, the EMG. So if I do EMG in here and I press enter, the value returned is basically the image element. If I hover over it, you can see that it's highlighted on the left, right? So if I do document.querySelector emg, I get this one. This is not just for HTML tags, that's why I mentioned CSS and not HTML specifically. You can, in here, for example, if we have, let's add it, a class. This was in the HTML episode, so or the CSS one, so you should check both of them. They're all up on YouTube, so like if you don't have the link for that, I can share it in the chat. But so in here, I add a class, and let's say this one is like the logo, okay? So now, if we check the code, we have class logo. And I show you already in CSS that you can access stuff that has a class by just doing dot logo, for example, instead of emg. And if I save this still looks the same, okay? But from the JavaScript perspective, now we have two options to access that image. One is doing, as I show you, just doing document query selector emg. And the other one is to do dot logo. So that's the same CSS selector, not the HTML tag. It's the same CSS selector, but it gives us the same element. This is important because let's say that we, for example, have like 3 or 4 different images in here. Like it could happen, for example, if we go to the good Twitter example. In here we have maybe this logo in here, and we have this image background in the like this image in the background and whatnot. So if I try to get just EMG, I might get this one, or this one is kind of hard to get the one that I want to interact with from JavaScript. So it's better to have some kind of class name to differentiate one from the other. In this case, we already know that this is the logo. If we, for example, add, I don't have other image, but I could like just add it in here on the bottom, I guess. Let's look for an image, derp. Yay, and this is great. Copy image address. And in here, instead of using the logo, let's paste that. I guess it will break everything. Yeah, kinda. So now we have this surprise. Oh, let me just turn my camera for a second off. Camera source. So now we have this image on the bottom that is like a surprise derp. So if we now try to do EMG, we will get the logo because it's the first one, right? That's what I want. I want to interact with the logo. But then, if for example this image was, instead of being in the bottom, was on the top, refresh, now it's on the top, and I do document query selector EMG, instead of getting the one I wanted, that is the logo, I'm getting the one on top. Okay, this also has the class logo, you shouldn't. So let's remove it. There. Okay, so I do this and I get the one that I don't want to use, right? I don't want to use that one. I want to use this one. So that's why it's useful to have some kind, like use class names in order to differentiate one thing from the other, from JavaScript and from CSS. So now if I want to interact with this one, I just do dot logo, and I get the one that has the class logo, and the other one that I just remove the class is ignored, okay? So now, from this point, I can do something like document query selector, and I can do two things. I can save it to a const, for example, so let's say like logo, and now every time I do logo, I get the same image. And from here, I can remove it by just doing, if I remember correctly, dot remove, I think it is. Yeah, remove is a function that comes with any element, basically with any HTML element, and that allows you to remove it. So as soon as I run logo remove, the logo is removed from the DOM. Okay, so it's not longer in here. Now it makes more sense for us now to remove that derp one from here, because it's like it doesn't match the design, let's say. So I can do something like document query selector. In here I put EMG, and now it's the first one because this one is the second one, so I get this one. And if I do dot in here, instead of saving it into a variable, I can just go ahead and access the methods directly. So I can do something like dot in here and remove. Is exactly the same doing this, calling it in here, than saving it to a constant. The main advantage that you have if you save it to a constant is that basically when you save it to a constant, you can reuse it. You can keep on doing the same things to the same element. This will like make a lot more sense later, but just bear with me right now. So if I want to remove this image, I just run this and the image is removed, okay? Now, if I run this again, the document query selector EMG, because we removed the other one, now the EMG, the only one available, is the logo. So if I run again the same thing, I will remove the logo. If you go into any website and you like basically run this piece of code and you start like running it one and one again, there will be a point where you will get this error because there is no more images. But if you keep on running this, you will remove every image on the website basically. So let's try to make it interesting in some regards. So what can we make? we could for now, and like to do this like I already took like an hour of your lives. So the example I will be creating right now will not be with the same website because the website is fine as it is for now. I will create like let's say like a login form, like a form to log into a website. And for now, let's just create a form that like the login form with like username and password or something like that. And let's just use that in order to show a message like welcome user whatever. Okay, let's just create that for now and let's close the stream with that. So let's go to, let's create a new folder, right? So I have this HTML folder. This is the one I used so far, so let's create a new one that is called login. Okay, I showed you previously that you can, from the code editor, you can go to the open folder that makes our lives easier. So instead of opening HTML, now I will be opening login. Okay, so I press OK in here. This is a welcome screen that you pretty much always see. I will be removing it for now because you already saw it a few times and it's kind of annoying. So here. Now, in the left, I don't have anything because I didn't create anything yet, but I can start by just pressing this new file icon I have in here, and I can, for example, put something like login dot, let's start with the HTML, right? So I don't know if you remember this, but I showed you this in one of the first episodes. If it wasn't in the HTML one, was in the one that I focus on the code editor. But Visual Studio Code, the editor that I recommend, has some like cool features like creating the base template for our HTML. I already showed you this, I will show you it again. So it's like exclamation mark and just tab, and I already have the base of an HTML website, okay? So let's save this for now. I already know that I need some kind of CSS because this will look horrible. So let's add like a login.css. And I will need, for the first time we will be using this, a login.js. JS is basically JavaScript. So all the things I was showing you the previous episode and this one will be in this file, basically, in this JS file. I got a warning, but this is one of the extensions I have to like improve the experience. I will dedicate at some point, one of the streams will be dedicated about to go through some like useful extensions and stuff like that that you can install in your code editor in order to make your experience better. But for now, let's just focus on JavaScript, okay? So we have this HTML, this CSS, and this login.js. for now there is not anything connecting the dots. So I showed you before that, let's make the title login to this awesome website. Web app, let's say web app, it sounds far better. So I already showed you that if you want to connect a CSS file to your HTML file, you need to make that implicit, because the browser doesn't load anything automatically. This is in order to avoid any kind of exploits or hacks or whatever. So in order to load our styles, we need to add a link in here. The code editor already is giving me some help, and here I have like link atom, favicon or whatever. They are useful in another scenarios, but we need like CSS for now. So login.css, and in here instead of style.css we need to use the login.css. Okay, so far so good. Let's start opening. Let's open it in the browser. login HTML in here. So let's put the code on one side, the browser on the other. Okay, so now we have a web page that has our amazing title in here, and we have also the CSS file that is already linked. We don't have any kind of feedback of that, but we can just check by doing something like, let's say body, and let's say background color to be black. Okay, and if we refresh in here, boop, we have a black background, so it's linked already. If we for some reason forget about this, like, and refresh, you will see that like the styles aren't being applied because we didn't link them. So that's why it's important to basically link those. So we have the styles link, but we don't have the JavaScript link yet. So let's put this on the bottom now. How can we check if JavaScript is linked? We can do something like I showed you before, like for example console.log, and in here like it works, and if we refresh, there is nothing showing on the console, so it's not connected to our website yet, right? So in order to connect it, we go to login again, and in here you can do something like, let's put it on the bottom for now, script tag. This script tag allows you to, for example, similar to the style tag that I showed you on the CSS episode, you can do something like console.log in here, and this one is inline, meaning that the JavaScript is in the same file that the HTML, and if we refresh, we will see that this one is inline, meaning that this is working. Okay, but we want to actually not have the code directly in here, but actually have it in another file like CSS, in order to have the things like separately one from the other. Okay, in order to be like, to make easy to focus on one particular regard. If we want to focus in styles, we go to the CSS file. If we want to focus on the functionality, on the behavior of our website, we go to the JS file. And if we want to focus on the structure, we go to the HTML file. So in order to keep them separately, there is a slight difference between the way we connect the JavaScript and the CSS files. CSS files are connected by the link attribute and this rel style sheet stuff, but basically this is saying I want to link a style sheet. The style sheet is a CSS file basically that is located in this place. When we want to have inline styles, we have a different tag that is called style, and in here we put the inline style. So for example, that body, whatever, we put it inline, okay? But we have two different things to achieve pretty much the same. JavaScript is kind of better, kinda. So you can inline the script by just writing the script in here as I just showed you. Or if you want to reference a script that is outside, that is not in the same file, is in another file, you just src, like with the images, the same attribute, that's basically source abbreviated. I don't know why they abbreviate a word as short as source. It's not as... Generally, like abbreviations like get on my nerves, but whatever. SRC, and in here we put login yes. Okay, so we save this, and if we refresh, we see it works. In here we don't have any kind of it works, it's the one that we had in here. So it's basically already working. We have both the login JS and the login CSS files already linked with our HTML. So now we need to get to what I mentioned previously. Sorry, I just read the chat and Leo is saying Hackerman. There is a character of a short that is available on YouTube and it's super funny. So yeah, I wish I was that guy. That guy is super cool. So going back to our code, sorry, we have to start working on the example I just I said a few minutes back. So the example I want to create is having a login form. So it's basically like if you go to I don't know, Facebook, I guess. Yeah, so if you go to Facebook, this will be like a login form. We need to have like some kind of field for our username, a field for the password, a button for the login, like login or whatever. And this one for now will not be useful, or we don't want to create account or forget account. For now, let's just focus on having two inputs, so this one, and a login, okay? So, I said this in the previous episodes, and you will like find out, like today I will start like constructing in top of what I said, basically. I show you HTML, but just the basics in order to you to understand the syntax. So in order to, when I open this file, you understand what this is. And I show you the basics of CSS. But that doesn't mean that if you, if now that we are in JavaScript, I will not talk more about HTML and CSS. I mentioned this on previous streams. And the fact is that as we progress through JavaScript and libraries and frameworks and whatnot, we will keep on learning stuff related to CSS and HTML. Today is one of those scenarios. So we now need new HTML elements in order to achieve what we want. I already show you images, I show you links, I show you sections and divs and whatnot. So different HTML elements, I show you the ones that go into the head that are not interpreted by the browser. But I never show you anything like a button or an input. So I will show you both of them. So for now, let's go for a second to the default styles. So instead of removing this line, I will comment it. This is a pretty common practice when you want to disable something for like a minute, and you will enable it later. You do what you basically put that code inside a comment. So for now, because I want to disable this background color, because I want to have the default styles that come with browser, I put this background color inside a comment, okay? That's pretty common in order to disable something. For example, let's say I want to disable this it works, I could just put it in a comment, and now if I refresh, the it works disappears because it's inside a comment. And when I want to enable it again, I just remove the comment and it's enabled again. And if I refresh, it's enabled again, okay? So, I said that I will be adding two new elements, right? So, the first one will be a form. The form element is basically a container for stuff that will be like a form. That's kind of like not an explanation at all, sorry. So let's go again to the facebook.com example. These two elements, this input for the user, input for the password, and the button for login, these three elements, sorry, not two, these three elements are inside a form, because this is a form like the one when you need to go to, I don't know, like a state thing, or you need to pay your bills or something like that, and you need to fill some forms in paper. Well, this is basically like the software representation of a form. So you need to put these kind of elements inside a form. let me be clear about something. If you don't put this, like for example the email and the password and the login, you don't put those inside a form, they will still work. But the thing is, like I mentioned before, it's better to have some good consistency in your code and try to make it as easy to read for us humans as for machines and computers that like screen readers and stuff like that. Because people that has visual deficiencies or stuff like that and they need to interact with our form, if it's inside a form element, it's far easier for the computer and the screen reader to figure it out that that's a form and inform through the speakers to say to the user that doesn't see, for example, that the user is in top of a form. So it's better to just use this and like try to, every time you need to have these kind of interactions, like having inputs and buttons and stuff like that, put them inside a form. Okay, so we have a form already. Let's just have that for now. If we refresh the website, nothing shows up because it's just a container for our elements, or actual elements, the one that we will be showing, like this, this, and this, will be inside the form. Okay, so now we need two inputs, one for user, one for password, and then we need a button for the login. So let's just do that. One is input. Okay, by default VS Code will add this type text. That's a good thing, keep it as it is. We have other types that we will be seeing later. I will show you just two for today, but we have this input text, and I said that we needed two, so let's do then two. And then we need a button for login, so let's just do button. The button element is similar to any other element, like a div or a title or an h1 or any of those that I already showed you. But whatever you put inside of this will be shown inside the button. I will show you in just a second how it looks. So in here, let's just put the text login. Okay, save this, and in here, let's clear this out. Why is so console? There. In here, if we refresh, now we have one input, that's this one, two inputs, that's this one, and the login button. Okay, we already are going into the right direction, kinda. So the issue we have right now is that this is okay. This is just text, right? So for example, like my user is Luke Shiru. My password is password, let's say, for example. Okay, so this is a problem already. This should be hidden from any prying eyes, right? So in order to make this hidden, the type, instead of being text like this one, it should be basically password. Okay, so once we do that, if we refresh, we can again look Shiro in here, and the password is password. But now you can't see it, right? Because the type is password, the password is actually hidden. One tip I could give you to like a hackerman tip, let's say, is that if you are in a website, for example, let's say this is already Twitter or Facebook, and you you don't remember the password, it's like it's saved by the browser and it's auto-completed, but you want to actually see it, you can go ahead and just like do select an element, like I already showed you, select the password element, and if you change this to text, then it shows the actual content of the password. So this is super insecure, but it's one tip that you could use, like use it wisely and try to not use it to break into anyone's account or anything like that, please. So yeah, if we go back to password, then it's hidden again. Now we have text and password. These are the two that we will be using today, but you, for example, are able to use something like number, and number only allows you to do something like 12, for example. But if I try to type letters, I'm trying like really hard to type letters, I can't, and you get this like up and down in order to like increment and decrement the number, but that's not what we need. We need a text for user and a password. So those two, user, password, that's awesome. The login button is basically there just for like taking these two pieces of information, and for now I just want to show a message in here, like on the bottom, that will say something like welcome user, okay, and read the value of this in particular, this user input. So let's try to achieve that through JavaScript. Let's test this out for 1 second. Yeah, okay. By default. Okay. Now, one heads up. Form elements like the one I have on the left right now. In the old web, when like HTML just started going out, and when the like www was a thing and stuff like that, so we are talking like the really old web, forms were already a thing, they already existed, but JavaScript it wasn't as powerful, or didn't exist at all, or wasn't used at all. So how like in the past, how did they manage to actually have login forms, for example, without having any kind of JavaScript? Previously, they just take this data and send it to the backend, basically to the server, let's say, and the server was the responsible of logging in the user and stuff like that. But now we have like a lot more control from JavaScript. Why I'm going like back in history? Because right now, if I type something like look in here and pass in here and try to click login, they are both like whitened, like the values are cleared, and I get this question mark at the end of my HTML thing. And why is that? Because let's do something. In here, we add a name, is username, and the name for this one in here is password. Okay, let's refresh in here, and if I type look 0 in here and password in here, and I press login, now instead of just a question mark, we get all this gibberish. But if we like, I will copy it and show it you in here separately, this gibberish, right? But we can separate it, and basically we get question mark, username, this thing is basically the value I set in here, this name, and this password is this. If I change this to like just pass, for example, this will be pass. Okay, so this kind of approach is useful when the backend, the server, will take care of this. But for now, we just want to grab this value, this username value, and just show it in here. So we don't want this. So this will get trickier. I'm just like letting you know in advance, but we will be like adding some code in here in the JavaScript to avoid going into this thing, like showing all these things in here and showing the message down below. Okay, now let's start from JavaScript. So we need to access the text input, the first text input. So for now, let's just do, let's do const username. Let's put the name username input. That will be better. And in here, I already showed you this like a few minutes ago, but like you go like document dot query selector, and in here we could use a CSS selector, right? So one possible selector we could use is input in here, and just to make sure, let's do a console log user input. Okay, let's go and open the console in here and refresh. Okay, we are getting a console log of the user input. If I hover over it, I already get the input. Okay, so now we know that this constant has an object inside of it that represents the input value. So now we have a connection between the DOM element I created, this username element, and JavaScript. We already have it in here, okay? Now, we also, the password is not useful for us for now, so we can just ignore it. In here, we could do the following: console log again, but instead of just showing the entire element, we can do the following. We can do dot, and in here, VS Code is already like giving us like a lot of hints and stuff that we can do with this element. So we can, for example, you can see the remove I showed you earlier in here, and we have like a lot, and I mean a lot of properties and stuff we can do, right? Look at all this, okay? I already know the answer, so I will directly show you, but we have a property inside the username input object that is called value, okay? So that thing basically will have the value of the input. Right now, if we refresh, we will not see anything because it's empty, okay? If that makes any sense. So this is completely empty, so we don't see anything. This username input value will be the thing that we will be using to show the message down below saying like welcome user, okay? So for now, let's just go back for a second to the HTML and let's add in here, let's say an h1. An h1 will be good. This h1 shouldn't show anything because it's empty, but inside this h1 element we will be setting the message that will say welcome user whatever, okay? So for now, let's just add yet another constant in here that will be const, let's say welcome title, and in here we do document dot query selector h1. Let's just make sure that it's in there, so console.log welcome title, refreshing here, and yeah, we are getting the h1, so we can do stuff with it. Just to show you, the property that we will be using to actually set the title will be something like welcome title dot text content. That's the text content of this element, so the text that will be inside of it, right? So if I do something like hello stream in here and refresh, we get hello stream in here, okay? Because we saved the h1 into this welcome title, and then we access the property text content of that title and set it to the value hello stream. So now hello stream is inside the h1, okay? So we are pretty close. We just need to find a way to, as soon as the user clicks on the login, we set the text content of our title to be something like welcome user, and in here we put something like this username dot value, okay? For now, because we don't have let's make it a little bit more wider, maybe there, because now we don't have any kind of way of knowing when the button is clicked or the actual value of this. If we refresh, we will only get like welcome user, but nothing else. So let's add an exclamation mark to show that it's basically like it should be here, but we don't have a way to actually know it, right? If I try to type something in here like username, I don't get any kind of feedback. I don't know when that value changed. So now is when we when this start getting trickier, okay? So we want to know when the button is clicked, but to be more precise, we actually want to know when the form, this like, let's try to focus it in here. Body form. When the form, meaning all these, the two inputs and the login, when the form is submitted, so when the user tries to send this information, this user and password, we need to know when that's happening, and as soon as that's happening, we need to update this welcome user message to have the username on it. Okay, so let's try to achieve that. In here, first, we need to select with the document query selector, we need to select the form. So let's just do that. Let's do const form document query selector form. Okay. As previously shown, I will log it just to be sure. Go back to the console. This super small layout is kind of like really hard to read. So in here, if we refresh now, we should, yeah, we get the form in here because we are logging the form. Okay, so we already got it. Now, how can, from the JavaScript perspective or the DOM accessing stuff, how can we know when the user is trying to submit the form? Okay, so I'm trying to use the words in order to be super clear about it, but when that happens, when something happens, that's from the JavaScript perspective, is called an event, basically, because something happened, is an event. Okay, so we need to do the following. We need to do form, and then one of the many things I show you that they're available in here is what is called an add event listener. Okay, so basically this add event listener is a function that will allows us to know when an event happens, when something happens to this form. Okay, so far so good. Let me know if it's confusing. Okay, so this function inside of this form element takes two parameters. I show you that you can, for example, if you, let's say const example in here, one function could be something like the double example is like value, and that returns like a value times 2. Okay, this is double. But let's say I want to add two numbers, like add, then I needed to do like value 1 and value 2, for example, and in here like value 1 plus value 2. So this is the scenario where we have more than one parameter. Okay, I already showed you this, but just as a reminder. Now, add event listener takes two parameters as well. The first one will be a string of the event that we are expecting. So basically, what's the thing that we want to react to, or the thing that will happen and we want to do something about it. So in this case, I already said the word several times. The event we are expecting from the form is the one that is called submit. So this basically is when submit happens, let's do something in particular. Okay, so the second parameter is just a function. Let's function that will do something when this happens. So this function that we put in here, I make it a block function for now. Event listener. So this is called the event listener. So that's why this call the function we are using in here is add event listener. So basically, you are saying first, let's save the form element from HTML into this form constant. Okay, this form constant now is an object that represents our form. Then that object has a function inside of it that is called add event listener. This add event listener, basically what it takes is the event that we are expecting and the listener. The listener is basically the function that will be called automatically when this happens. Okay? So in here we should do this. basically, this piece of code could be read as when the submit event happens in a form, set the text content of the welcome title to be welcome user username input. Okay, there is one thing that will fail, and I will show you, I will explain why, but just for now, let's just keep it as it is. Okay, so if we refresh and I try to do something like user in here, let's make it bigger again, user, and then we do something like pass in here, and I try to log in. I don't know if you notice, I can do it again, like user login. For a second, the welcome is shown, but then I get redirected to this username user password login, which is annoying, right? Because I wanted to see that message. I don't want to get redirected in here. But the thing is, by default, like the default behavior of the form is to send that information to the server. We right now don't want to do the default, we want to do something else. So in order to prevent the default, we need to do the following. So I said previously this will get tricky, and that this is why. The function that we put in here in the event listener, the one that will be called when the event happens, receives one parameter. Like for example, when you do like const double value times 2, and when I call double 2, this is the double function, this function is receiving this 2 value basically, right? So in here value will be 2. In this scenario, this event listener, the function that we use in here, receives one parameter as well, one value, and that value is yet another object, and that object is the event itself. What this means is basically this value that we receive in here is when the submit event happens, that has a lot of information, like for example when it happened, if the user did it or it was done automatically. You have any kind of information. For example, there is another event I will show you in like a few seconds, a few minutes actually, that is for the click event, when you click on something, and that event object for the click event has information like for example where the element was clicked, like the X and Y coordinates and stuff like that. So it has like a lot of information, but it doesn't only have information. The event object also has some functions or methods inside of it. One of the functions it has is this prevent default, and if we hover over it, we have an explanation that comes with the VS Code, but basically prevents the default from happening. So the name is already telling you what is happening. So that means that if we call the prevent default, we will avoid this redirection, this ugly redirection that happens every time we submit the form. So with this, we avoid that because we don't want that. And then once we prevented the default, we can do whatever we want. So right now I want to just set the title. So if I go ahead and refresh in here, and I set the value again to user and the password to pass or whatever, and I press login, now I don't get redirected and I get like welcome user. This like, let's remove this user to avoid any iterations, and let's do it again. Like look Shiru and pass, login and welcome look Shiru. Okay, so basically we took the value from here. Thanks to this, we took the value from that, and once the submit event happened, we prevented the default because we don't want it to redirect anywhere. We just wanted to keep the user in here, and we set the title, the h1 text content, to be welcome and the username value. Okay, so We could optimize this in several different ways. For example, out here we don't need either the username or the title, so we could just like cut this and use them in here. Let's put the prevent default at top so it's more clear. So for example, because we are not using either username input or welcome title outside of this event listener, we could, for example, move them inside of here, and that will make the code kind of cleaner. But it's just being like super niche about this. This was already like working, okay? One other one other example I wanted to show you was with this other event that I talk about. Let's add a button in here, and this one will be class example 2, let's say, and example, yay. So let's refresh. Now we have this, and this keeps on working because even if we add HTML, the JavaScript still works. So for example, in here I can do again like look Shiru, and in here like pass and do login, and we get like welcome, but that doesn't change the fact that we still have this example button in here. So we could, for example, and another constant in here called example button, and this one will be document.querySelector, and let's check what the class name was. So that's example 2. Okay, oh, let's turn it into example button, like there. Okay, we have the class name now, so we go in here and do dot example button because that's the class name we use. If we want to keep it, I use the camel casing in here, meaning that every word starts with an uppercase. I could also use the other casing called kebab case. So this one that is more common from the CSS perspective. So example button is also valid. And in here, for example, I do example button, document query selector, example button. Let's, as I did already several times, console log example button. Let's make sure that we have it. So refresh, and yes, I already have it in here. So now I can do something like, for example, example button dot add event listener. Similar to the event listener submit we have in here, there are like a lot of them, but let's do just click for now. And in here, event, let's just do a console log event. So every time I click on the example button, I should get a console log with all the information about that event, okay? So let's refresh and do, like, let's try that the username above, like, so look Shiru again, and like whatever, login, welcome to Shiru. That keeps on working. And now if I click on example, I get into the console, and every time I click it I get one different. I get all the information about that event. So as I told you before, every time this this function is called every time this event happens, and when that event happens, we basically get a lot of information about that in the parameter of our function. So let's clear out console. So we, for example, have, if the Alt key was pressed, we had buttons. This is like if I use the right click or the left click, or if I use the middle click or whatever, I get the client X and Y. This is the position in the website in particular. I get if the control key was pressed. So if I do control and click, I will do it right now. For example, like control click K is false in here, right? And if I do control click now, and let's look for control click key is now true. So you can see that we get like a lot of information about the event. So for example, if you want to have this button to do something, if the control key was press or not, you can do different things. So let's say, for example, we can keep on messing on the DOM. We have, yeah, let's close it with this one, and because the stream is about to last like 2 hours, so sorry about. So let's do it. We know that we have event, and we have how was it called? Example, control key. Yeah, control key. So this does not exist on type event. What? Oh, no, ignore me for now. I will explain this in the next one. Bottom event. Mouse event. I guess that would work. Nope. Okay. This is my editor being a jackass with me right now. Because this is not being recognized as a click. Oh, I get it now. Let's do this. Just for the sake of this example. I will explain what I was trying to do just yet, but like in the next one, sorry. Button, let's do this. And there, okay. So, control key. Based on this control, if the control is pressed when I click, I will show different messages. Let's do that, or maybe, yeah, I know what I want to do. Let's do clear. So when I click on clear, the welcome message will be clear. And if I'm pressing control, then I will show something different. So how I achieve that? Basically, now I will need these two outside. And I want to set this same title, change it to something else. So I already show you, and I talk about the ternary operators. So I can do it, I use it in here by doing event control key. So if the control key is pressed, then like this is a Easter egg. Easter eggs is like secrets hidden inside software or games. So this is an Easter egg. If you press the control while pressing clear, you will see this message. And if not, then just clear it. Okay, so let's refresh. Let's hope this works. So we have look, Shiro in here. A password like pass. Hi from Eric, welcome. I do login, so I get the welcome. If I press clear, the message is clear. And if I press control and clear, this is an Easter egg. An Easter egg, look, go. Okay, but you get the message. So yeah, that's like pretty much how we can start messing up with the DOM, or the document object model. Basically, it's like a JavaScript representation of the HTML and CSS we currently have on our website. And this is basically the way of connecting that JavaScript with the HTML and start like using the information. In the next one, I will go a little bit more in deep into this like events stuff, and I will start talking about what I just tried to use in there, what is called GS docs. Those makes our lives as developers like a lot easier. So yeah, the next one I will be focusing a little bit more in this like event handling and whatnot, and we will be making this login a little bit better. We will be trying to make it a little like to next one will be a login with a sign up. So let's the user create a new user and log in with the users that are already existent or not. And a little bit about GS docs, I think will be like a good focus for it. But yeah. Let's do that in the next one. So let's switch the camera. I just wanted to like always thank you for watching this stream. It got like a little bit longer than the previous one. It's like they are getting longer and longer because the content gets like, it will be getting like a little more complex with time. like the streams about, for example, libraries like React or Angular that we'll be talking like in the future, those will be long for sure. I will be having to like try to like separating them into like maybe 2 or 3 different streams in order to be like easier for you to grasp and like, yeah, and to understand, because those are like quite complex. But for now, we will be keeping on like learning the basics of like JavaScript and the interaction with the DOM, because basically libraries like React and Angular are just using this on the background. So all the popular libraries are doing what I show you today, but like in a super high level. So if you understand that, then when you switch to libraries that make your life easier, if you like end up with any kind of errors or problem, you will be understanding what is happening on the background. Basically, it's like the difference between just learning to drive and knowing about the mechanics of the car. When your car gets stuck in the middle of a route, or if in the middle of nowhere, there is a huge difference between knowing how the engine works and how to repair it, and like just standing there without knowing what to do. So again, thank you a lot for watching. As usual, you can ping me in any of my socials, in Twitter, in Instagram if you want to, in Telegram, like you can ping me anywhere. In the website that you can see on the screen right now, luxio.me, there is like a list of links of my most used websites, but you can ping me anywhere you want. Also, this will be uploaded to YouTube later, so you can leave your comments down below as well if you have any kind of doubts, and I will try to tackle them in the next stream. So yeah, thanks a lot guys, and I'll see you next time.